I'm Marcus Blake here at the studio at That Nerd Show, and we are speaking with director Brittany over her film, Where There Was Once Water. So we're going to jump right into and talk about this film and what it's all about. Thank you for joining us, Brittany.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
So Where There Was Once Water, it's a documentary about the driest places in California. Tell us a little bit more and how this project came about for you.
Yeah, I like to say it's a song for the sacred in all of us, because even though it is a documentary film about a rather overwhelming topic, I came at it from a very hopeful and poetic perspective. And since we are all made mostly of water, that's a piece of it too, that if we can reconnect and have our own personal relationship with water, then that's the beginning of the healing that we all need on the land, but also within ourselves.
That's interesting that you said that. A movie that we reviewed years ago that popped up, and we were talking about it the other day, was Chasing Mavericks, about the surfing in California, and the Gerard Butler character who talks a lot about the spiritual aspects of water and stuff. So I just find it ironic. We're talking about this when we're talking about that film this week, so I love it. And
cool.
Absolutely agree with you. So anyway, what's the story behind this? How did you?
How did I land here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I way back I traveled internationally and was really impacted after I saw in person how dramatically lives were affected when there was no access to fresh, clean water. So, specifically in India and some countries in Africa, that was the first time I ever saw it with my own eyes, that when there is no clean water, little girls don't get to go to school. They have to spend their whole day walking to and then hauling water home. And it just broke my heart. And so I came back to the States and started doing some trying to do some fundraising around that, and then found a nonprofit that was working in water access and wastewater treatment, water access and sanitation, and then donated the water to that. And then later on, way down the road, as the drought was getting worse here in California, I thought, wow, geez, there's a real disconnect, it seems, from the fact that our water is running out and the fact that our personal behaviors have something to do with that. And so I started this as a photo project, hoping to highlight the disappearing bodies of water and hoping to inspire folks to action, through that. Then the topic got too big and I didn't know how I was going to photograph disappearing groundwater. And so I thought, well, hey, I'm a photographer. I've never made a film, but I could try. And I did a Kickstarter. It was successful. And then the promise I had made to myself was, if the Kickstarter is successful, I will make a film. And here we are 5 years later. 5 years later, from that Kickstarter moment, 7 in total.
It's amazing when if you're using your phone trying to capture photos and it's becoming too big, you just one little click and switch it over to video and it turns into a film.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how, the iPhone is trying to market itself, because I've known people that, have been able to shoot great footage with iPhones and Android too, but it's interesting how it kind of morphs from, I'm going to do one thing, and then it becomes something completely different.
Yeah.
And then I did that with like I'm a writer too, and did that with my first novel. It started out as a play, then a screenplay, then a novel, then it went back and forth. I'm like, well, it's everything. So I have two things in one. Yeah. And when you're telling a story and your story keeps evolving, whether it's a documentary or something else, that's just part of the journey. So I like how you kind of started it with one thing and it ends up, you kind of got into film.
Oh yeah, I definitely got into film. Here we are. So I'm really happy, I'm really happy with where it landed. Not knowing at all what I was getting myself into. Still at the end of it, I'm like, okay, yeah, this feels right.
So what was the biggest thing that you learned through your journey of doing this film?
As a filmmaker, or about the topic of water, or just
actually both
in general? Oh, gosh. Well, as a filmmaker, I learned that a film is so much more than just moving photos.
Right.
And, as a visual image creator for a living, like I've been a professional photographer for 20 years, it's a completely different, adjacent, but completely different
Right.
storytelling mechanism, right? And so that was a huge learning curve, I guess, that I was expecting, but I was not expecting enough. Does that make sense? Like I had no idea how many more pieces were involved. And then also just, everything that's connected to that, like getting the crew together and submitting to film festivals and all the pieces. So that was a big growth opportunity for me. I still would encourage folks, if you're a photographer or you work in, I also have a radio background. So I had this audio piece and this visual piece. And so I went, okay.
There you go.
But still, I had a lot to learn. And then around water, I mean, it sounds cliche, but water is life. And we cannot do life without water.
Right.
And most of us in the US, I think, take it for granted because it has always come right out of the tap. We get to choose hot or cold. We've probably got it in 2 or 3 different rooms in the house.
Sure.
And or right, or more, right? Like what happens if that is no longer the case all of a sudden? And do you know where your water comes from? And what would your life look like if all of a sudden there was no more? So it was huge for me to spend so much time within all of those questions, and then to really look around and find the right people to help me answer them. And that's where I try to keep coming back in the film, to leaning on Indigenous women. They have always known and they have always said that water is sacred, and that everything is connected. And if we don't have that personal relationship and take personal responsibility and consider ourselves to be part of nature,
right,
then we won't be able to solve the problems that we face. So.
Right.
I think those are my two-part answer to your question there.
Now that you've done this film, do you feel like the biggest problem is really just humanity itself, or do you feel like that maybe government or politicians who get in the way as well? Which I guess really is another part of humanity getting in the way of itself. But
yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it's so complicated, right? Because we are humans and humans are complicated. And so,
right.
Yeah, a lot of the time we are our biggest problem, but we are also potentially our own, salvation or solution, or I think there's a lot of potential within us to do the right things, but oftentimes it's easier not to. And right. Oftentimes, money is louder than anything else. And that's maybe where the politics question comes in, is here in California. I don't really go into this in the film. This is not what my film is about. There is a great film called Water and Power, if
right.
folks are interested in that piece. But yeah, I mean, people who have a lot of money have a lot of power and have a lot of say in where our state's resources go. And that's probably not just the case here in California. That's probably the case elsewhere.
Oh, no. I mean, Texas just got through dealing with a week-long.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, where we were pretty much shut down from power. And then, we also had to deal with water issues because pipes were bursting, and there was, they were just trying to, boil water when you could do this and that, and Texas wasn't prepared. So it kind of got everybody to where you're like, oh my God, what if we really don't have these things? And
Yep.
yeah, our infrastructure's not what it should be. So,
Right.
But you come at this from a spiritual place more than anything else, and I feel like you're touching on a subject that we don't talk about enough, is that indigenous or people that have not, they don't have the resources that we do necessarily, have always understood the point of how sacred something is, and that we really do need to listen to them, that they are the wise people of our society. Is what I'm going with.
Yeah.
When you started out this project, we started out with the project, I know there's a lot of things that get answered, things that you learn, but the spiritual side of it, was that mostly how you wanted to look at it when trying to talk about water?
I think so. Because it keeps coming back to that. It keeps coming back to this idea of personal relationship. And I believe very deeply that we will do anything for someone we love or something
Right.
we love, right? And if we can learn to love water, and we will do anything to make sure that it's available for all the life on this planet. So, but if we don't, if we don't even think about it, well, then what kind of a relationship is that? But we can't. But water gives us everything. We don't get to be without water. So,
or we eventually turn into the Idiocracy movie where we water the plants with some corporate sports
electrolytes. Yes, Marcus, it's what plants crave. It's what plants crave.
I love the fact that you know that reference.
Oh my God. It's what the plants crave. Don't you worry. That joke has come up many times in the making of this film. Brittany, we don't need water. Electrolytes. That's all we need.
It's funny because over the last 4 years, that movie has become so relevant to politics. Like this is where we're heading. And, and every time I hear about droughts, it's like, can't we solve this problem? I don't understand, with all the resources that we have, with everything that we can do, and it's us as humanity that gets in the way. It's like, this should be an easy problem. So,
I mean, easy is nice of you. I don't think it's easy, but what I wanted to do with this film is show, like, here are a whole bunch of things that are already working.
Right.
Grab whichever one resonates with you, right? Because it's what you can do in Texas will be different from what someone can do in Los Angeles, will be different from what someone can do in super rural Nebraska, will be different from, from a sailor on a boat in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we can all do something, and it'll look.
Again, getting back to the journey of filmmaking, I'm assuming that your lifestyle has changed kind of a little bit with what you have learned. And I like the little clue that you're, as you're drinking water there.
You like that? I drink so much water. I mean, it's not even like a prop. It's just, I just drink a lot of water.
Right. But how have things changed for you in your lifestyle from doing this project?
Yeah, quite a bit, actually. I learned a lot in the film about techniques for grazing livestock in a way that heals the soil, puts carbon back into the soil, and then living soil can then act as a sponge and hold on to all the water that falls on it. And so I did not used to have alpacas, sheep, ducks, and a giant dog to protect them all, but I do now. And a year ago, exactly today, actually, I closed escrow on this tiny little home, and it's an off-grid house, and I live in the middle of the largest remaining native grassland in the state of California. It's a little place not many folks know about called the Carrizo Plain, and it's in San Luis Obispo County, so not far from the SLO Film Fest. And I've lived in this county my whole life, and I've always loved this place. And I found the perfect little tiny off-grid cabin, and I went, that's it. That's the spot. That's the spot where I can start to practice all of these things I've learned. And I learned about regenerative agriculture primarily from cattle ranchers. I'm not feeling super drawn to raising cattle, but I love the woolies. And so I want to slowly but surely build a herd of sheep and implement some of these rotational grazing ideas, this holistic land management that I have learned throughout the process of making this film.
Wow,
Albeit
okay.
in my own very humble, very small scale way. But that's like what I'm saying is we can all do something. So if I'm living on a grassland that would benefit greatly from some land management practices that prioritize the health of the soil for the health of the water cycle, and that's something that lights me up, then heck yes, sign me up for that. So, I have alpacas and sheep.
Nice. Well, I got time for one more question, so we're going to ask you your nerdy question.
Okay, I like it.
All right, here it is. If you could have a weapon of choice or a superpower from within the nerd universe to fight the forces of evil, what would you choose?
Oh, you were so putting me on the spot.
I know. I'm telling you, this is the toughest question. It just comes out of nowhere, and you haven't really thought about it. And there's so many things.
Rain. How do I make the rain? How do I control the weather? That's what I want.
Oh, you want to be Storm from the X-Men. I gotcha.
Yep.
Rain
for you. Rain for you.
Oh
rain.
My God,
Who needs more rain? I got it.
My neighbor's bothering me. Tornado at your house.
Right. Hailstorm.
I know.
Frozen pipes. Yes.
One of our writers is a huge X-Men fan. I will tell her you said that. She always loves when people choose X-Men characters in the
perfect
answer. So that's
perfect.
I think that's a great one too with the subject of your film. So perfect. Well, thank you very much for interviewing with us. It was a great film. I like how you approached it from the spiritual side of things.
Thank you.